Okay, this one we just have the gray now, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to layers. Okay, yeah. Okay, I'd pop a sky in there, yeah?
Yeah, I just threw the gray in there for now,
Yeah,
but
that's fine. The gray for me always is to see if I have fringe. It gives me,
yeah, I'm glad. I'm glad I
it'll
put it
show
in
me
there
white and show
because
me black.
there was a lot of overspray still. Like there was a bunch of blue, but I didn't see it until I put the gray. So
That looks pretty clean right there.
there's still some blue like on the fringes of the leaves, but um, I'm not sure how to clean that up. Like
Good,
that
actually.
middle.
Are you talking
There's
about like here?
yeah.
I don't think that's fringe. That's not fringe. I think that's just there's some blue cast in it.
Okay.
Over here, there's a little bit. This there is. So I might come in here at this point, go onto my mask, and if I need to tweak anything, I'd probably do it in here now. Why my brush keeps disappearing? So I might just go in here in my mask and do little touch-ups in here. Maybe get a little more of that leaf stuff going in there, or maybe take it out. There's a little too much blue in there. I think I'd actually might just go, there's something, let's see if we can do this. If we go into hue saturation, there is right here where it says master, you can break down the colors. So I'm going to go to blues and I'm going to go, and I might be able to desaturate a little of that blue. It might be cyan. Yeah, see? So if I go up like that, I want to really saturate it. And if I come down here, I might be able to just knock a little of that blue cast out of it. I actually don't mind it though, because the other thing is I probably don't even need to do that because, hang on. When I do this, when I do that, the blue becomes irrelevant. That little tiny bit of blue cast, it actually is helpful because there is a lot of blue in this environment. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I don't really think you need to worry too much about that because it's actually helping you because you want some of that blue permeating this scene. I know that's funky, but there you go. And it looks pretty good. Yeah?
Yep. Thank you.
I think the selection was actually pretty good. But if it had a little too much blue, I could also take my sponge tool and put it on desaturate and just go hit a couple of little spots where it feels like it and desaturate those out so they're not too blue if they were. I don't think they are here, but if they were. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Thank you.
Drinking hot coffee on a hot day is a bad idea. Okay, this looks pretty good. Where's Julio? Oh, wait. Is this even separated? No, this isn't separated.
No, it's not.
So why
It's
do I
not.
have this?
I got to the. Pardon?
Why am I looking at then? It looks like it's just the original file,
Hmm.
right?
I believe so. What I did was
Oh, you got an alpha right here. Okay.
that. Yeah, that's as far as I gotten so far.
Okay. So you just need more time?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's fine. It looks like you're making the mask correctly though,
Okay.
or the selection or whatever you want to call it. It's actually a selection, I guess.
Okay.
We're going to do the exact same thing today with a different purpose. Okay. Ooh, who's this? Kevin, where you at?
I'm right here.
That looks great.
Thank you.
Did you do something to the foreground here? It looks like you lit it up a little.
No, I don't think I did.
Wow, that came out really nice. I don't know why, but you're getting more information up close right here. I don't think mine did when I did it. He must have left it a little, not quite as dark as I did. So it's getting a little more detail up front, which is kind of nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like that's one where I look at it and I wouldn't question if this had been Photoshopped. I wouldn't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Which is the goal, right?
Yes.
And I'm going to give you guys, what's today? Oh, it's Thursday. I'm going to give you guys, till Monday to finish this one and what we're going to talk about today. Okay. That's plenty of time.
I couldn't start on this one yesterday. I didn't have much time. I'm
It's
just
not
gonna
due
do it
today.
tonight. All right.
It's due Monday. Two things will be due Monday, this and what I'm going to talk about today. Okay. And this one also is still sort of at the
Yeah.
starting point. Yeah.
So that one's mine. I got stuck on the alpha layer because then it did that and I had no idea how to fix that. When I tried to invert it, it just made it super light and it didn't have that contrast that I needed.
Okay. So I think let's get rid of that. We know that the blue is our more contrasty thing,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
So I'm going to go down here and just drag a copy. I'm going to rename it and call it working. That always helps me. I know that's my working layer. And the first thing you're going to want to do is start to level this out. Does that make sense?
Okay.
So we're coming into our levels and we're trying to go, I'm in the mid tones right now. I don't like that. It's going into the lights too much. So I'm going to just go over the darks.
Wait, so you just made a copy of the blue channel? Is that what
Yes.
you did? Okay.
I just dragged down the little plus thing and made a copy of it.
Oh, okay.
And that's what I was telling you, the tutorial I gave you guys last night. I said something about selecting it and then making a copy of it or something. Don't do that. Just drag this. That's all.
Okay, that's why I got confused. Okay.
Okay. That's what I was
Thank
afraid of.
Thank you.
But I wasn't here yesterday to put up the video I did yesterday. And the other one's basically the same, except for that one
Right.
thing. And then I'm going to come up here to my lighter values and lighten that up as much as I can. So what I'm going to do here is just try and maximum contrast this as far as I
Right.
can
Mhm.
without chewing up the leaves or anything. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I was trying to get to this part because I felt like I understand that part. I just got lost with the select.
Okay.
alpha.
So does that kind of make sense now?
Yes, it does. Mhm.
And then I just take it as far as I could. Then I go with my black brush on overlay and start painting out black, flip it to
Mhm.
white, paint out white,
Yeah.
and that's it. So what you're trying to do is zero the black to zero black and the white to zero white, right?
Yeah.
Or I should say 100%, 100%.
Mhm.
I don't know why I always say zero. That's why I give you guys a little time on this, because sometimes it takes a little bit of figuring out. Ooh, okay, this looks great. Now we lost a lot of the tree in here. You see that? Where you at?
I'm here. Yeah, that was my second try at doing the selection in the layer mask and it like way over selected. So
Well, that's your
I
balance.
know what I did wrong.
It's basically you probably you just bounce if you go. The reason you creep up on it, like you start with your levels and then you creep up, get it as dark as you can, as light as you can. If I keep going, it'll do this. Like if I push it too far, too fast, it'll just eat up all the detail. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then I got to go with my brush and finesse a little bit and build it a little bit. I can't, you have to do it fairly, subtly. You get pretty fast at it, but at first you got to kind of really think about it. Does that make
But I
sense?
can go back and fix this now, right? Because it's a layer mask.
Yeah. You should
Okay.
be able to go in. Yeah, you should be able to go in your layer, I would think. What's this? Okay, that's a different layer. Does this have? This is the layer mask. Okay, the layer mask is on a.
Well, the gradient fill is something I added to make it look darker in the front because in the front it would be further away from the sun, so it would be darker, right?
Yeah. Well, yeah. Yes, because your light source is going to drop off. But you should be able to go on your layer mask on your actual image and paint things back in or out. Yeah?
Yeah, okay.
But we'll talk a little bit more about this today. So it should make a little more sense because we're going to use the same process, just adding one little thing onto it. Okay, this is way too not selected. Who's this?
It's me. Can you hear me?
Yeah, so this feels, it's just cut out, correct?
Yeah, I was trying to get a hang of doing it at first. So I wanted to do it fast because I wanted to see if I could get the horizon lighting correct.
Okay, so, but I would go back now and make sure that you get this selected correctly, right?
Hmm.
Yeah?
Yeah,
Because right now we're not seeing any leaf shapes or anything, right?
yeah,
Okay, so let's go back in and finesse it. So you walk through it so you understand it, correct?
yeah.
Okay. Okay, who's this? This is Tom. Where you at?
I'm here.
What do you think?
I think the sky's a bit blue, but I didn't really know how to change that.
The so if you came in here, it's here. Now, if you it looks like you saturated it to me. If you did
Yeah.
that with a
Yeah, I did.
okay. So if you did that with a layer mask, you could come back in and alter it and change it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Because right now the only thing I can really do really is come back in here and like desaturate it a little bit. And I could probably come in here with my sponge tool, wherever that is. Hang on. Computer has to think endlessly lately. Sponge tool, desaturate. I don't want it at 100. I'm going to pull it down. And I could come up here. Desaturate that a little bit. So it feels a little more natural. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does.
So I just kind of desaturate. I did a sloppy job, but you get the point. But I don't mind you playing. I mean, I want you guys playing around with the different tools, so that's fine. But the layer mask and all that, the channel mask made sense, correct?
Yeah, it did.
Okay, because I want to talk about this now, which is a really handy thing. So let's go. Okay, so I pulled this image. That all makes sense, everything we just talked about, correct? Everybody just needs a little more time, right? Okay. I'm going to.
Yes, a little more time.
Okay, so I pulled this image of this girl. Okay. Now you see these a lot. You guys have probably seen this a lot where you see, especially with fashion magazines and things, where they have this girl and she's completely cut out. They put her on a different background. You're like, how the hell did they select all that hair? Does that make sense? Because I used to have this problem. There actually used to be a standalone program, I think, called Knockout that was just for that. I tried to use it a long time ago and I just couldn't figure it out. It was a long time ago.
I was trying to do that yesterday just on my own time to explore, and I was like, how the heck do they do this? I was
Okay,
having
so
such a hard time.
That's what we're going to do.
Yeah,
Okay,
good.
so we would do the same drill, and I started one, just like a cooking show where I'm going to pull it out of the oven. Done. Does that make sense, Casey? But how I would start this, hang on a second, guys. You can give me 2 seconds. I want to get another cup of coffee so I can get even hotter. Hang on.
Make iced coffee.
Iced coffee sounds nice right now.
Just, yeah. Doesn't have to be hot, Mike.
No, like hot coffee makes me sweat when I'm in a hot room.
Exactly.
Hot coffee's made for hot days.
No,
It's like pho. Hot.
no,
Disagree. No.
no. You're not allowed to speak.
Doesn't it make you hotter?
I think it's fine to have hot coffee on a hot day.
Oh,
No, Julio, you're not allowed to speak after that. Uh, oh, sweet, cool. That's down. Okay. Hmm.
wait, is he making coffee? I thought he just went to get coffee.
Maybe he has some in like the coffee pot.
He had to go out to get coffee.
Nah, there's a room right next to his room, coffee making. There's like the teacher area. So
Is there a
he
big
has the coffee
discussion
maker.
around my coffee making?
Yeah,
Yes,
talking
we're
about
judging
making
you right
coffee.
now, live.
We're
I
wondering
told you to
what
put
coffee you
ice.
drink, and do you make it? Do you make your own coffee, or do you just go get it?
No, there's a coffee pot in the kitchen.
Oh,
So I usually drink a pot of coffee before I even get in here. You know, well, between me and my girlfriend usually, and then usually, actually, I'll start doing this today. I was going to do it yesterday. I usually make sun tea. Then I have iced tea. Okay, but my jar is full of dried apricots right now. My sun tea jar. So that's the whole history of my tea drinking and tea making and coffee making and consumption history. All right, so you guys can still see the girl here, yeah?
Yes.
Okay, so it would be the same drill. I'm gonna go into my channels. I'm gonna look through here, find maximum contrast. That sure ain't it. That's not bad. I think it's this one, just a little bit. Again, it's blue. I would drag it down here. We'll go to my layers. I would get her. Now here, let's look at this real quick. Is this a good example of this? If I go too far with this, see how it's starting to rat up the edges of the hair a little bit? Okay. And if I go the other way, it eats into the edges of the hair, right? Which is the same we did with the landscape, but you can really see it with hair for whatever reason. So, you know, I'd have to do the same thing. I'd go, how far can I go here without losing any detail or anything? Then I also got to kind of look at like these areas here are actually the hair, you know, seeing through. Okay. So it's not a highlight. So when you come in here, and then I would, you know, I would dial that in as far as I can. And then the same drill, I'd come in here with my brush. Oops. I'd come in here with my brush. I default these right here. I don't know why it's doing that. Put it on overlay. And we'll start off with black. Oops. Flip it. You know, and just start painting this stuff out the same way we did before. Now this in here, all this interior stuff, I could go up to a normal because this I'm just covering. I don't really need to save any of that. So all this stuff, I could just come in here and do that. It's out here. Oops. It's out here in the hair part. Hang on. Where I'm going to switch it back to overlay. And start painting this stuff out. But I want to keep those little sky holes in her hair, whatever you want to call them. So I'm going to kind of paint around those a little bit. And then come down here and it would be the same drill. And then I'd come out here and paint out my white, just like we did the landscape. Does that make sense? Okay. So let's go, boom. And I got one here. And here, there's my layer mask or my channel mask. Yeah. So I just did this right before class, so it's probably not perfect, but you really want to dial this in, okay? So I'm going to go command click. I'm going to go back to my layers, just like we did in landscape. And go channel or layer mask. It's inverted, so I'm going to go Command I, and there she is. Okay. So everybody understands that up till now, right? Because it's the same. Yes. Okay. So then let's go. You have a question? Okay. So let's make another layer like we always do. And I'm going to do my mid-value gray. So I can actually get a sense of what I've got here. And you can see there's some of this fringing up here. And it's a little sloppy out here. You see all that? Okay. But, and then this right here, I'm not dialing in, but that's actually in the photo. There's a reflected light right there. Okay. So it actually picked it up because at first I thought it was a mistake, but it's kind of nice, actually, a little cool light. And then I'm going to go, now I'm going to put a layer above this. Okay. And I'm going to go right click it, and we're going to use our clipping mask, create clipping mask. So what that's doing is it's going to use the mask underneath, and I won't paint outside of the mask. Does that make sense? And then here's what we're going to do. We're going to go back to our stamp tool. And I'm going to put the layer on darken. It's already on darken. Okay. Does that all make sense? And then I'm just going to select like out here. Well, let's go out here. And I'm going to paint in those fringy little flyaway hairs. I'm going to paint them in. See that? And it's going to get rid of all this white fringy stuff. And I'd be a little more careful. It can be dark down here. It's fine. And the nice thing is, you know, if you got a good selection here, you can be pretty loose with this. You don't have to be careful with it like you usually do when you're doing stamp tool stuff. So let's go through here. See how it's showing all those little flyaway wispy hair? Yeah?
Yeah. Hey, quick question.
Yeah.
So you said that the layer was set to darken. That's
Yeah.
the layer in the middle, correct? With the picture and the mask, the clipping mask, that one?
I'm actually on darken on my my brush.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Got it. Thank you.
So you're going to see that. And again, you'll see it in Premiere. You'll see it in here. You'll see it on your, a lot of your tools are going to have that same overlay language. Okay. And the difference is if I apply it to the layer, then the whole layer is affected. Okay. If I just apply it to the tool, I'm just using it on that tool and not the whole layer. Because then if I go back on that layer and do something else, it's also going to be like reduced in opacity or whatever it is. I don't want to do that. Right.
And that's called a clipping mask?
Yeah, up here is the clipping mask, which we did before. Remember we did that border thing? But in that case, we made a shape. What I'm doing here is I'm putting it above, and it's just using the layer mask below as a clipping mask. So all that does is keep me from painting outside of the clipping mask. Does that make sense?
Yeah, Mike,
Yeah.
what's the difference between like what we did right now and like sharpen?
Sharpen?
Yeah, is there where it just you know how we're going to find the little flyaway hairs? Sometimes I don't know what command it was, but along is there a sharpen detail where it just kind of like
There's a sharpen filter, but it wouldn't have anything to do with this.
oh okay.
Sharpen, what it does is just that. It like sharpens up the image a little bit, makes it a little more clear. You got to be very careful with it. It's really weird too. I've noticed it if you do something with sharpen, I don't even hardly use it anymore. Or the unsharp mask. I don't know why they call it that. And I'll show you in a second if you want to look at it. But I've noticed when it goes, especially for some reason, when it goes to social media, it'll sharpen even more. And then you can super tell. It has a kind of weird look to it. So you got to be really careful with that tool, right?
Oh, so sharpen's like a filter. It's an overall thing, not like this, like how we're using it like a brush. So
Yeah,
it's not
no.
like that. Okay,
Not like
gotcha. Thanks.
Okay, so I'm going to keep coming out here. By the way, it's very satisfying when it adds in all those little details to me. So I'm just coming down near it, near whatever I'm, painting in and making sure that, you know, it kind of matches the area. Oops, see, that didn't.
Would this not work if you were using the brush tool? Because right now you're using the stamp.
I'm using, well, we could try it. Let's try it. Let's go to brush. Now it's on overlay. Hang on. Let's try it on darken and see what it does. That looks pretty good.
Mhm.
I think part of the reason people tend to use the, that actually looks good. So yeah, looks like you could do both. See, that's way too dark. So I'm going to go up here and get rid of the darken for a minute. See if I can just get a regular, still too dark. Yeah, it's all right. Yeah, so it actually needs to be darker. I didn't realize that. So that's a little better. So now I'm using the brush tool. I think part of the using the stamp tool helps you a little bit with texture, maybe.
Mhm.
To be honest with you, this is so complicated visually. I don't know that it really matters, to be honest.
Right.
But I'm liking the brush too, actually. So let's say that we said that's okay, which I'd have to still go in here. And I love it when it gets these little wispy things in here. That's just really nice. Like that. I'm gonna give it one more pass here. That's too dark, but I'm gonna leave it for now. Oops, way too light. I'm gonna go back to my darken. Wherever it is. I don't know why I have trouble seeing these things. It's so weird. There it is. That's too light or too dark, I mean. And that's, let's say that's okay. It looks to me, yeah, like in here, I'd probably need to go back into the mask. And probably come in here and paint out a few of these things. That's really sloppy. I wouldn't do it like that. I might even go back into the, I might go back into the mask and change that. So I get these little holes punched in there. Does that make sense? Yeah. I'm gonna try something here.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Oh, this is on darken, no wonder. Let's see something. So I don't like that. That's really sloppy. I'd go in and make a better. I would have made this selection actually when I was doing the actual selecting in my alpha channel. So one of the things I did when I was doing this, if I was taking the time I should, is I look at this before I start painting it, because I want to get these little holes that are punched in there like they are here. I want to make sure I get those selected, and I got to make sure that I'm not getting, once I start getting into a dark, start darkening this all up, that I don't mistake these highlights for these holes punched through. Does that make sense? So when I made this selection in my alpha channel, I'd make sure I got these little holes selected. Like if you notice, I got them here and here. I got them in a lot of spots. So it's not that hard to do, because if I'm getting that pretty black, then my black shouldn't over paint it too bad. It should actually be, it'll be easier to do in an alpha channel. Does that make sense? But let's say I already did that for time, right? And I want you guys to do that. Yeah? Okay, hang on. I'm going to pull this up here. And they always do this masthead thing with these things. Oops. Hang on. Yeah. Something weird going on here. Hang on. Why is it doing that, man? Then I'm going to give it a background. A little bit of a contrasty background to what it is. I'm going to find a masthead. This is what you normally see with this kind of thing. Oops, what happened? That's weird. Sorry, it's taking long. I'll change the color. Hang on. Come on, there we go. And then they usually put this behind their hair like that. See if I can do it like this.
So is this going to be also part of what we'll go over on Monday?
No, you can just do the selection.
Okay.
I'm fine with that. I just like to give everything context. Does that make sense?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. This looks like fun though. It's basically, a magazine cover. Yeah.
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 In 5 minutes, right? Find it good.
And by the way, where do you get your fonts from? Do you have like a preferred
I'm gonna give
website?
you guys all my fonts.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
So we would go, let's go. And I'm gonna go here and go here. Oops. This is not cooperating. There it goes. Get all my amazing beauty tips. Then over here, they'd have another block of type over here and your typical, this kind of magazine layout. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Is it-
Can you tell us your beauty tips?
If you guys want to do that, we got to do a separate Zoom. That's going to probably be an 8 or 9 hour conversation.
Wow.
Very
okay.
in depth. I have to get up at 5:30 in the morning to look like this. I know that's sad too, by the way. Okay, look. So now we got that really nice, pretty nice selection, right? Which used to drive me crazy before I knew how to do this. Every now and then I'd need to separate something complex like this, and man, it would be a disaster. Okay, because I was going in with the pen tool and then erasing stuff. It just would take forever, and it never looked this good. Okay, and I think you guys can see the only thing that's really different here is that we put a clipping mask above our layer, and the only reason we do that is because if I don't put this on here, you can see it right there. If I don't put this on here, when I go to paint, when I go to paint, it's just going to do this. You know what's going on? Oh, there it is. By the way, if you hit, I think it's caps lock. Let me check. And you see, if I hit caps lock, I think it's caps lock. Yeah. See how it gives me the crosshairs? Okay. And then sometimes you'll start painting and you go, why am I painting so much? Right? Because when you hit the caps locks, it gives you the crosshairs, right? The actual size of your brush, if I hit it again, is actually that big. So sometimes you might have the brush this big, you got a caps lock hit, and it looks like it's a little brush down there. It's not. You got to hit caps lock again to see how big, because you'll be painting over the whole thing and you don't realize it because it looks like you're painting with a small brush. Okay. But without the caps lock on or the clipping mask, when I go paint, I'm just going to paint all over the place. The clipping mask is going to contain it into the mask that I created. Does that make sense? So I don't have to worry about being careful or anything. Okay. And then that, in this case, the clipping mask, I just make a layer above it and then I right click it, drop down, create clipping mask, and then it'll use that mask underneath it. Make sense? If you remember before we made that shape, then we put it underneath, right? Which I remember at the time I thought was weird. Well, it's the same thing here. You're putting it over the shape that's underneath and then telling it to make a clipping mask, and it does the same thing. And it's just going to contain all your brush work. That way you can go really loose and everything when you're putting in all those little flyaway hairs, right? Which is the whole trick with this. If you don't do it like this, you know, what happens is you tend to miss all this really fine detail like that. Okay. And yeah, if you want to do the magazine thing or whatever, I don't care. But I just want to see that you got and I also want to see some color behind it. If you don't do anything other than just at least put a gray value behind it. So make sure that you don't have any fringe. Does that make sense? That's why we're always doing that mid-value gray things, to make sure we don't have any fringe. Questions? So the only difference is coming in with that clone tool on darken and adding that stuff in and the clipping mask. I think that's the only difference. Yeah? Nobody has any questions? Everybody's good?
I got a question.
Sure.
How many cups of coffee do you drink a day?
I only do it in the morning. And then I'm sick of it. Like I have X amount of it. I can't drink it anymore. It grosses me out. Like after however much. Like I'm at that point right now. This is the last one I can have. And then I wonder why I can't sleep all the time.
I have a question, but it's not related to this demo. Will we also be going over the camera critiques for the project? Okay.
I want to go over myself first. And then I had that short day because of the that meeting yesterday and all that. So I just want to get caught up a little bit. These two things are important to me going into next week. Okay. And there's always like all this fun stuff I want to show you guys like this. So I have to pace myself so it lays out correctly. Because I can sit here and go down the rabbit hole and all kinds of fun stuff, but you got to get these things down. These are your channel masks. All these things we're going over right now, to me, are very base fundamental tools that you've got to know how to use. Okay. And also, again, when you're going into other programs, After Effects, Premiere, various animation programs, all those different things are going to have channel masks, and all these, they have layovers, they have clipping masks, they have all the same stuff. Okay. And then and especially since most of these things, at least for the foreseeable future, all are part of the Adobe suite, which the good part about, I know I complain about Adobe, but the good part about Adobe is that all these products are made by the same company and thought of as a suite of tools that work interchangeably with each other. Okay. Like that Mademoiselle logo I just took out of Illustrator, right? That's a vector file. Okay. Which is weird. I went online to find that. I like that logo because it's just got a lot of visual weight to it. If you do Vogue, it has a lot of thin ascenders and stuff on it that it looks great, but it just for this demo, it doesn't really work. But anyway, somehow I landed on a vector file, which you don't usually find. They don't usually like their stuff floating around. And most companies don't like their logos and stuff floating around in vector, because if I have a vector version of their file, I can do anything I want with it. You know what I mean? I can blow it up the size of a building. You know, I know it sounds weird, but it means that I have a very, I don't know, if I was making bootleg product or something like Gucci bootleg product, I'd want to have a vector file because I can make anything then. You know what I mean?
Is the file tag like .eps? Is that what you mean by vector file?
It could be .eps. This one's .svg, which I never see, but usually it's .eps or .ai. .eps and .ai are essentially the same thing. They're just vector files. Okay. When I used to send things to Chinese factories, I always tell people this, they could easily buy a day right? Because they're the opposite. When we're leaving work, they're coming into work, right? So if they want to buy a day at the factory and I sent them an EPI, let's say I sent them an AI file, they would come back at 5 when I'm leaving or whatever, and I'd look at the emails, what's coming in. I go, and they, you know, because they'd say, yeah, we got the files and blah, blah, blah. And they go, you sent us a .ai file. Can you send us a .eps file? It's the same thing. Okay. But by doing that, they bought a day, because now it's going to, for us to react to it and all that kind of stuff, that buys them a day, right? And then they'll do the opposite 2 days later. They'll go, oh, you sent an EPS file. Can you send us a .ai file? It used to drive me up the wall. So then I started sending them a PDF, a .ai, a .eps, and I send all three. And I have a conversation with them and go, look, stop bullshitting around. You know what I mean? Like, if you're behind schedule, you need to let me know, not try and bullshit me like this. It's a hard thing to contend with, because if you want to do that, you can always find something to do it with. You know what I mean? You could go, oh, this clipping mask, I don't know. Can you get rid of the clipping mask for me? Even though they could do that, they could just flatten the file. You know what I mean? But it buys time. I don't know if it's still like that, but that's how it used to be. Okay, so there's our cover. By the way, part of the reason also I want to do this going into the poster project is you might want to separate somebody out like that. Does that make sense? Also, this is going to get, you know, it's not going to be this, you want a picture where somebody's on a more flat background. Okay. If she was standing in a forest, this isn't going to work. Does that make sense? Okay. It's just not going to work, because you can't just easily separate the background from the foreground. What this, you know, you want something where you have a decent, so if you're ever going to do this and shoot your own photography, shoot it on at least something, you know, with a white background or something, right? And it doesn't have to be perfect, obviously, but you can, as long as it's giving you something to maximize the contrast, right? And then again, I found a tutorial on a guy who did a very complex channel selection that I didn't think was possible. I'm going to go back and look at that and reverse engineer it, because it's basically this, but he did a couple of things. It was kind of mind blowing, actually, because I was like, man, that opens up a whole nother area. Because what I just said about separating out from a very complex background, that's what he did. Okay. He was basically separating out abstract, complex, it was a wave, abstract, complex forms out of abstract, complex forms. That's really tricky. Does that make sense? And I think there was one little tool in there I didn't know about. And I think that was kind of the linchpin to it. The other thing, you guys, I'd like to see you start doing, because next week I want to do the poster thing. You've been talking about it for 100 years. You might want to go in and start doing you can do this on paper, you can do it on your laptop, you can do it on your iPad. I don't care. Does that make sense? Because it's just thumbnails. You know, and you might go, I'm going to put somebody here in a big cowboy hat. And I'm going to have horses down here running towards the viewers, and a big sun, and Kevin Costner standing here, because he's always in everything that has to do with cowboys. And then my type is going to be here. And maybe the head of the other stars floated in here, you know, something like whatever you want to do. I don't care. They don't have to be complex. I just have to be able to read them. So it could just be, hey, I'm putting a guy with a cowboy hat here. What the hell's going on with my computer, man? Could just be that. I got a guy here. So don't worry about drawing. Does that make sense? I'm just more concerned about what it is and understanding where things are going to be. Does that make sense? And also I want to make sure that it's, because I get people a lot and they go, well, I want to do something for, I don't know, an animated movie or something. And I go, that doesn't really work, because all you're going to do is just go in and object select all those flat shapes and then pop them in there. And it's basically a collage. And that's not very interesting. Does that make sense? I want to have enough where you got enough meat on the bone to actually like play a little bit with all the things we've been talking about. Does that make sense? And then I think what I want to go into next week are brushes. And then from very simple brushes up to much more complex reactive brushes. Does that make sense?
Hey, Mike, could you give some suggestions for like poster design, like where to look or some books?
Poster design, I would just type in like, first I'd just start with movie posters. And then I'd go amazing poster designs, amazing movie poster designs. And then just a lot of cool stuff will come up. And I usually collect a lot of stuff. Like I saw a wine bottle recently with a guy, I forgot his name now. Really interesting. It looked like he was doing them in vector. You know, and I took a picture of it and looked the guy up and figured out who he was. Actually, it was really weird. This wine company, I don't know if it was in his contract, which would make no sense to me, that he really couldn't speak to it too much, because I don't know if I ever found actually his name. I think I figured I found the guy, but I don't know that. Usually when that label was a really interesting label. Okay. It was like a tiger, like roaring, but it was like done in vector, but very sort of kind of painterly. Anyway, it's really interesting. So usually you go online, and I did go online and people were talking about it. You know, people are into design and stuff were talking about it. But I couldn't find the illustrator's name, which is super weird, because usually the illustrator himself will go, hey, here's these ones I just did on social media or whatever. Does that make sense? But I'm always trying to catalog that stuff. You know, I have a folder called OPS in my browser, and that just means other people's stuff. And then when you go into that folder, I have watercolor, traditional, digital, conceptual, illustration, editorial. And every time I'm on a website or something and I go, wow, there's a lot of cool editorial here, I save it into my editorial file. Okay. And what I'm really doing there is I just want to, it's inspiration stuff. Does that make sense? Like, and another one, it's not about posters, but I just think they have a lot of really great design. Hang on. I might've talked about it before. I don't think I did. Come on. Is this one? And again, hang on a second. So this one, I don't know why my computer's going so slow, man. It's called the die line. Okay. What the die line is for the most part is packaging. You can go down here. They just have great design in here. Okay. You can go down here. Look at that. See, there's that cut paper idea I was talking about, right? I've seen some commercials with that too now. If you go, I don't know why. Oh, it's down right here. So I can go into categories, agricultural packaging, whatever that is. I can pick the substrate, aluminum, paper, whatever, color if I want, and then I can search that. I don't really like their search engine. It's weird. And I'll get all these ideas for packaging and stuff. Okay. But to me, it's just graphics. Does that make sense? And another thing, because I probably talked about that in here, whatever your design discipline is, don't stick in that design discipline. Does that make sense? Go see other things. And one of the things I used to do, I don't know, sometimes I'd be at work and I was going to start on something that had nothing to do with packaging or anything. Okay. And I'd be on here looking at this and somebody come over and going, why are you looking at that? And I go, it's inspiring. There's like cool ideas in here. There's nice pops of color. I'm looking at toyetic stuff and it's fun and smart design solutions, and it just gets me all revved up. It's not apples to apples. And I kind of like not looking at apples to apples when I'm looking at, I see this all the time with students where you give them a project, like a vehicle or something, like a futuristic vehicle or something like that. And then you go, okay, so here's the project we're going to do. And they go right to looking at Star Wars. Does that make sense? And you're going, why would you look at Star Wars? That's going to get stuck in your head and you're going to start drawing Star Wars stuff. Don't do that. Go to the headwaters of your design, go look at aerospace, go look at real world things and start extrapolating out based on And if it's design, if it's graphic design, all of it has parameters, and start designing based on your parameters, but go to the headwaters. Don't just go to other, like if I was going to do package design and it was some toy product, I don't know if I'd go here and look at the toy packaging, because I'm going to see something that's super great and it's going to get stuck in my head. Does that make sense? Yeah. Anyway, this is a good one. And there's a lot of them. Dribble's another good one. I don't want to, let's see if I can sign in. This thing always kicks me out. I don't know why. There it is. So Dribble has a lot of vector graphics, but again, it doesn't matter to me. I'm just looking for cool stuff. And it just has a lot of cool stuff, right? Like, there was a guy in here. No, that's not it. I don't know what boosted shots is. Hang on. Another thing that this one does, hang on, is like you could come in here and go forest. You know, and you'll get all sorts of images based on that kind of thing. Does that make sense? And then usually it puts, I don't know if it does on here. Usually it puts the palette in here, like right here somewhere. I might just not have it on the right thing, but it'll usually put the palette they have in here. It's really interesting. Okay. And I come in here a lot just to get ideas and get inspired and stuff like that, mostly for vector stuff. Okay. But it's another good resource. And I found a lot of really interesting people on here. Here's illustration. Different stuff, okay? And I had some saved in here. I don't know where they are. Boost, maybe it's that. No. Maybe it's this. That's weird. I don't know where it's stored it at. There's this guy who does these really cool car illustrations in here. I like those a lot. Anyway, so in other words, like if you're looking, talk about movie posters, you can, or whatever kind of poster you want to do, you can talk about that, but I'd look at like various sources to get different kinds of ideas. Does that make sense? Otherwise you start seeing, if you guys notice, like if you go to the cereal aisle at the store, they all look the same. Have you noticed that? They look like they've hired the same illustrator for every single, mostly kids cereals. For every kid's cereal, it looks like they hired the same illustrator because they're all using a colored line and airbrushy rendering technique that they've been using for a long time. They're all rendered like that. It's weird. So there's some sort of thinking there. It's probably marketing people. They go, well, that's what cereal boxes look like. And I go, no, if I have a sea of everything that looks the same, why would I not pop something different in there so everybody notices my product? But marketing people do the opposite. You know what I mean? They look for what is, they just copy stuff. And if they're bad marketing people, does that make sense? There's an old Simpsons with a marketing woman on there. She reappears on there every now and then. And they're doing a TV show or something. The TV show's ratings are dropping. So she's in the conference room. She has all the other marketing people around her. And she goes, okay, I called this brainstorming meeting. So we need to brainstorm new ideas. So I've given each one of you a TV, a little TV. So we're all sitting there with TV. She goes, go through all the channels and find something we can copy. That's marketing. Okay. I love it when they do that, by the way, when people notice it in media. Does that make sense? Watch Mad Men. You'll see the same thing. You'll see the battle all the time between the account manager people and the creative people, and how the account manager people think they don't need creative people. They can do it themselves, which is complete bullshit. And they always want to get rid of the creative people. It's like, if you're in a I always say this, if you're in a corporate environment, other than not Disney, not very creative companies, but like other companies, you got to remember, if you're in the art department in a big corporate situation, you're the anomaly in that entire building. Does that make sense? Everybody else in that building is an MBA. They're probably jealous of you, by the way, because everybody wants to be creative. It's true. And marketing people. Okay. I used to have, I don't know if you ever said this, but I did some freelance for his company for about a year. And the CEO of the company was I just couldn't stand him. And we had our area, we had our area, right? The creative area, right? And we'd always turn the lights off in there. We started turning the lights off in there just because it was nicer, right? It was just nicer vibe, right? Because we had lights and we had windows and everything, so it's fine. He would always walk by and go and open the door and go, wow, these creative people, what are you doing? How can we get the lights out? He'd make a big deal out of it. And the implication was we were all screwing off. You know what I mean? That he didn't get, or if we weren't sitting there, and I told him one time, I go, dude, I'm freelancing here. Like, if you're going to do that, I'm going to split. You know what I mean? I go, cause I'm not a worker bee dude. That's not what I do. You know what I mean? I go, I'm doing this because I'm segueing into something else. I don't really care about this job. It's just a paycheck to me. And if you're going to kind of imply that people aren't working enough, I'm going to split. You know what I mean? Cause I don't want to, I'm not a factory worker. Does that make sense? Anyway, he would do that kind of stuff all the time. And then sometimes you're all sitting around. This part of your job as a creative. Sometimes you're just sitting around somebody's desk or whatever, coming up with ideas or drawing or just thinking of things. They view that, because they come from a very market or a business background, is like people are screwing around. To them, it's like people standing around the water cooler and bullshitting about TV or what. And it's like, that's not what we're doing in here, dude. You know what I mean? And you got to be sort of hands off. Now, if you're at a company like Disney, that doesn't usually happen. If you're a company that's creative driven, it doesn't usually happen. Okay. Because everybody kind of knows the drill and knows what's going on. And they actually, Disney has to really care. Disney's creating so much content right now. I heard right now there's jobs like crazy right now. Does that make sense? We're trying to get somebody, our storyboard guy just had to walk away because he has too much work, right? And he's great. So we have to try and replace the storyboard guy. Well, none of us can find anybody because everybody's like, I'm swamped, everybody's swamped right now. We got students going over to, Kayla just got an internship over at Nickelodeon. Josh just talked to Nickelodeon. It sounds like he's on the he is on their radar. Another one just went over to Art Center. Another one. It feels like there's a lot of momentum right now. And a lot of the students are going for these like internships and things like that, and they're getting them. You know what I mean? And that's your ticket in, really. You want to go in there and make a big impression. And I always say the same thing. If you go into, because we had interns at various places I was at, and a lot of times I'm going, okay, well, that person's been here for like 3 months or whatever the internship is, and they're killing it. They're doing a great job. Why would I not hire them? I've already got them trained. I already know they're cool. I mean, I've had this whole time to work with them and find out they're cool before I have to even think about hiring them, which is awesome, right? Then you go, man, this person's cool. Like, I like having this person here. They do great work. They get along with the team, hire them. You know what I mean? I don't want to go outside because I don't want to go out and try and find somebody to hire. I'd rather just hire some. There they are, right? Okay, hang on. I just got to make sure I got my. I'm going to put up the assignment for this. I'll put it for Monday. Yeah. And then Monday, I'll probably then go over the camera stuff and all that stuff. I'll get all caught up this week or this weekend. I'll put this video up today, right after this meeting. Hang on. I got to take another screenshot. And it's just the hair and the landscape thing. That's it. And again, I don't care if you do the magazine layout thing. I was just doing it as an example. And let's go here. Sorry, I reset up my desktop now. I don't know where anything is. Okay, there we go. Hopefully, I won't have trouble editing this video like I have. If not, it should be up pretty quick. Yeah. But you have like 4 days, so it's fine. Yeah. Okay, guys. I'll see you on Monday.
Thank you, Mike.
Mike, can I talk to you
Thank
after
Sure.
you,
class?
thank you.
Show.